Welcome to the Aid Station. I'm Chris Robb, and today we head off to New York where we meet Michelle Taylor, the global head of sports sponsorship for Tata Consultancy Services.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me here today. It's so fun to get to talk.
It's great to catch up again, and I'm wearing, in your honor, the last time we caught up was at the Tata Mumbai Marathon, which I think was in February, and so much has changed since then in the world that we're in, hasn't it?
It has. That's the last major event we've had as a sponsor, so that's a good memory for sure.
Yeah, it was a wonderful time. Michelle, you've got an amazing story and how you came to be in the role that you're in, and I'd love you maybe just to start by telling us a little bit about the Michelle Taylor story, please.
Sure. Well, my journey really started as a kid. I was always active, always into sports, but I didn't really think much about how that might play out in terms of my career choice. But I went to school and I thought maybe I'll be a coach, right? I was a runner in high school, always an athlete, and I thought I'd love to be a running coach, right? So maybe I'll be a teacher and a coach. And I started doing a ton of internships, and I ended up studying sports as an undergrad and then later getting a master's in sports management. And through that, I did a ton of internships. I was at the '96 Olympics, actually. I was at the Penn Relays, and every internship I could do, I did. And it really helped me figure out what my journey through sports was going to be. And I knew that amateur sports was the place that I'd probably end up. But my first it really started out as an internship, again plugging internships for those students out there. But my first internship was at the Disney Wide World of Sports, which is now the ESPN um, World of Sports, down in Orlando, Florida. And I really came to it as a graduate student. They brought in a few other graduate interns, and we're really there to help them launch this new property. And it was a mixture of pro and amateur sports coming together in one venue. It was fantastic. So I spent about 9 months down there and ended up getting a job there and staying in Orlando for about 4 years and working on the event side and eventually going over to the sales side. And then I was looking for more and had an opportunity to move over to New York Roadrunners and worked in the sponsorship side there. So I was at New York Roadrunners for a long time, for about 14 years, which was unbelievable. And then had an opportunity to move over to the sponsor and the client side, if you will, with Tata Consultancy Services, and now overseeing their global sports sponsorships.
Wow, what a great story, and what an amazing role. I mean, I think I'd probably be right in saying you'd be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, sponsors of mass participation events globally with your TCS New York Marathon and your huge portfolio in India and also other parts of the world. So just great to be able to get some of those insights from you. What's life been like for you? We were talking before we came onto recording. I mean, you've got three daughters. You've been at home. Sounds like it's been pretty challenging.
Yeah, it's been hectic for sure, right? I think on the work front, as a tech company, we're pretty seamless in terms of moving to a work from home scenario, and that's been there's been no change really in the productivity level and the ability to get things done. We're a global company and we're used to connecting through technology, so that's been rather seamless. But on a personal level, sure, it's been quite a ride. I've got three school-age kids that are each following their own academic path and trying to help them through it. I certainly have appreciated the benefit of being in New York and being able to still get outside and run in a safe way, as I know not many of our colleagues in other parts of the world could do that. So it's been crazy. Things are just slowly starting to open up here in New York, but in a real cautious way. So there really aren't any great gatherings. Restaurants are starting to make some outdoor eating arrangements. Um, so it's been a slow reopening right now.
Yeah, and it's so nice to see a little bit of that momentum starting to build. Even in my part of the world where we are in New Zealand, which you may be aware had, full stadiums, sold out stadiums this weekend, and Australia's starting to open up. So hopefully that ripple's starting to come forward, and it won't be long before we've got some mass participation events coming back. You said, in your sense, last event was Tata Mumbai Marathon in February. So there's obviously been some challenges along with the way. What have been some of the bigger challenges relating to, I guess, your team that's spread around the world and some of the decisions that you've had to make, Michelle?
Yeah, it's been real interesting. Like I said, we're lucky as a technology company. We're set up for this type of change and transition. So it that was the easy part. I think what's really difficult is, our commitment to our community and our commitment to the properties that we sponsor is really important to us. At the same time, our business too has been impacted, right? And so as we start to negotiate and kind of live through some of these cancellations, some of the postponements. We've got our finance team that's sort of questioning, how can we recover some funds? How do we make up for some of this? And at the same time, we want to make sure that these event properties are well positioned to carry forward, right, for whatever comes after this. So it's a real difficult position, even as a sponsor, to be in. We're constantly having to, again, discuss with our finance team, what do the budgets look like, what might they look like in the future when nobody really knows. And we're trying to hold on to budget, because marketing oftentimes is kind of the first funding to go, and we're trying to hold on to it as much as we can because we know it's important, right? And so we're really trying to get creative as well. So we've been challenged to think beyond the actual event itself, much like the event properties are doing, right? And whether it's flipping to virtual, or what we've been really working through is something that we've been wanting to do for a while anyway, and this has just given us this sort of opportunity of time to do it, which is to move towards a strategy that's less dependent on the live event, but still diving into our credibility in the platform, in the running platform itself. And we need the live events. So we absolutely need them and want them to come back, but we also want to create content and messaging that kind of knits it all together, right? And supports what we're doing at the live events so that we can have this year-round engagement. And so we've had opportunity to start, doing that work and planning that out.
Oh, that's wonderful. And we hosted a webinar a couple of weeks ago and we spoke a lot about virtual events on them. And one of the real strong themes that came through was virtual events are here to stay, but not as a replacement for the existing
Right.
events. But there's ways to build this year-round engagement. Wow, that sounds fantastic. And you also shared that sustainability is obviously something that's important to you, and you've had an opportunity, I think, just today to bring together a group of people to start, taking the sustainability message even further forward, which sounds exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, during this time of such challenge, we're really using it as much as we can as an opportunity to dip into places and things that we've always wanted to do work on, that we just haven't either had the resources or the time. So now that we're not as focused on executing live events at the moment, we've been able to do some work on sustainability, which is a core of TCS's CSR efforts, and really leverage some of the talent we have in terms of critical thinkers at TCS to support our race properties and the sport of running at large, and see what solutions might there be out there that can help bring a greener races, and being able to think about that now and put ideas into place now so that we can implement it even in 2021 and beyond, right? There's no expectation that this is going to be brought to life right now, and that's okay. It's not the time for it, but we need to do the thinking and the work now so that we can put it to motion for the future.
Sounds fantastic. And so much kind of leadership starting to come out of these times, isn't there, across all sorts of different areas? Some of it not so great, some of it amazing.
Right.
I'd love to hear some of your leadership insights. Obviously, you play a significant leadership role with a global role, with a team spread across the world. But, are there any particular principles that you apply? Are there any particular leaders that have taught you things that have carried you through your career, Michelle?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly have gained a lot from the leaders I've had the opportunity to work with, whether it was some of the strong women from New York Road Runners back when I was there. That's always, been of influence to me, and certainly at TCS, there's some great leaders as well. I mean, I think what has been so interesting to see at these moments of uncertainty and moments of just difficulty and challenge that we're going through is that where people step up, right? And giving people the space in the room to do that. And I certainly, have seen it. There's a woman on my team who, during this time, she put things into motion. She knew that our hospitals, especially here in New York City, were desperate for protective gear. And she knew that in our office, in the city, we had a whole bunch of buffs, right? These running masks that runners often use. And she took it upon herself to go into the city, get the protective and the permissions needed to pull those out and then get those to the hospitals. And so to me, I love that example, because leadership doesn't always have to come from the top, right? Here's this woman who saw an opportunity, and these nurses and doctors were so thankful and so appreciative. And it just put something that was otherwise sitting in our closet to such incredible use at a time where it was really needed. So I love seeing that. And honestly, I think, you know, our leaders, even at TCS, have done such an impressive job of transitioning the company during this difficult time. Again, like I said, we're a tech company, we're set up for this, but any company with over 400,000 employees within 2 weeks to be set up for secure borderless workspaces, and to not drop any client business, everything seamless, is pretty impressive. And I think the leadership in our organization, and even our HR teams, are individually calling all employees, checking in, right? So again, leadership coming from all different places to make sure that everybody's doing, and that we're taking care of each other and the community.
That's so wonderful. And, the point that you made there about communication, calling individual staff, I've been saying
Yeah,
since day one, it's those organizations and people that communicate the best that I think have the best opportunity to come out of this strongly. And you're hearing so much of that, of, people just making that time to call individual staff, whether it's, and on this show, I've interviewed people from like 5 people businesses to, people at your end of the scale. And that's been one of the common things,
yeah,
is constant contact with staff, which is inspiring. And I'd love to end
yeah.
on something inspiring. I'm sure you've seen so many inspiring things in your career so far. Is there anything particularly that stands out, or a little story that you'd like to share with people, please?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, obviously in the running space, every story, every runner has a story, and it is so inspiring. And one particular that I just adore is, around our program that we've started with our teachers in North America. And we basically have invited teachers to participate in the marathon because they themselves are um, inspiring the next generation, right? They're in the classrooms, but they also have this ability to basically take some STEM education content that we've developed and also extend that, which is a critical need in our education system right now. So we've been working with teachers and doing this contest year over year to give them entry into the TCS New York City Marathon as a way of them inspiring their students. And this story that I heard, we went into a school a few years ago, and we do these surprises for these teachers, and we surprised a teacher at an all-school assembly with the announcement that he is getting an entry to the TCS New York City Marathon. And he was so overwhelmed, and he said to us, in 4th grade, his teacher came into school and showed everybody her New York City Marathon medal. And from that day, ever since, it's been his goal to participate. And so this was his chance to now do that for his students. And I just think it's so amazing how we touch how different things impact our lives in different ways. And that story of his teacher coming to his classroom impacted him to become a runner and have the steady force and steady sport in his life that's given back to him so much. And he's able to carry that on with his students. And it's just, I feel like our sport is full of inspiration everywhere. And it's one of the reasons I love it so much.
It's such a wonderful story. I think I'm so passionate about us as a sport communicating better the health and social impact that we create. I think so often we focus on measuring economic impact. You see governments and cities look at, how many tourists came into the city, and that's obviously a key component of it. But the
Right.
health and social impact, and I think what's going to be needed post COVID, it's going to have an even bigger role. And so exciting to continue the journey. Michelle, as always, the time flies by. Thank you so much for making the time. It's been wonderful to see you, and hopefully it's not going to be too long before we get to catch up again face to face.
Absolutely. I look forward to that.
Thanks
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me.
Thanks,
All right, take
Michelle.
care. Bye
Bye.
bye.